Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this 13-inch MacBook Pro model A1502 early 2015. Alright, so we're going to need a Pentalobe 1.2 or P5 screwdriver. We'll also need a T5 or Torx 5 screwdriver and a T8 or Torx 8 screwdriver. So first thing we're going to do is remove all the screws from the bottom using the Pentalobe 1.2 or P5 screwdriver. You want to keep all these screws in order. The way I do that, I put them flat side down like that on my desk in the pattern I remove them. So here you see this rectangular pattern. So we're just going to remove all those screws and put them in that pattern. All right. So these two back screws are actually shorter than all the rest, but it's always a good idea to keep them in order, even if you know that the screws are the same size. It's just a good practice because sometimes the screws might be a little bit wider or longer or thinner, and if you put the wrong screw in the wrong place, you can damage your computer. Alright, if this video helps you guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices. Helps you save a bunch of money. Please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. These are customer computers. I don't own them. So by the time you see these videos, there's a very good chance I won't have them anymore. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue removing all these screws. Alright, so once you get all the bottom screws off, you're going to want to take the bottom cover out. So just go from back here and then just pull it up, just like that. There are some clips in the middle. Okay, this one had a battery changed before. They had some liquid damage. Right now, the keyboard's doing something strange. We did try another keyboard, but it had the same issue. I tested the keyboard outside without replacing it. Basically, I pulled the keyboard cable out and plugged a new one in and then tested it from outside. Anyways, after we got the bottom cover off, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the battery here. All right. So I'm going to be transferring over the motherboard and the screen to a new keyboard assembly. All right, once you've disconnected the battery, you want to press and hold the power button for about 15 seconds just to drain any residual power. This will make it a lot safer to work on, especially if you're going to be disconnecting the LCD or LVDS connector. For most repairs or parts replacements, you don't really need to press and hold the power button, but it's always good to do it. Makes it a bit safer, especially, again, for this LCD or LVDS connector here. Alright, so now we're going to start just removing everything. So first thing, let's go ahead and actually remove the screen. So I've done a lot of videos, so if you want to just see how to do a screen replacement, you can search for screen replacement videos that I've done. Alright, I'm going to switch over to the T8 or Torx 8 screwdriver. Alright, and let's go ahead and pop this out. So under here, there's some adhesive holding these two screws down. I just use my screwdriver to get between there and then pull it up just like that. Here you can see. All right. Same thing with the other side. There's some screws, or there's a adhesive holding the screws together down here as well. So I'm going to get underneath and flip that up. Here you go. All right. You can actually use the smaller screwdriver to do this. The T8 is a little bit big for that. And I probably should have actually just used the T5 because I have to actually remove these first. So we're going to remove this little screw here first. Okay. All right. Once you've gotten that screw out, you can grab that metal tab and you can take it out. All right. That helps hold the screen in place. If for some reason the hinges come loose, then it will keep that there. All right. So let's go ahead and remove this screw as well. And then I'm going to pull this latch or this little thing up as well. All right, there we go. Okay, next thing, let's go ahead and disconnect all the cables just so we don't accidentally rip anything out. So we've got the wireless connectors here. I just get at the tail as close as I can and then just pull it up just like that. We're going to do that for all three. All right, and then here we have the eyesight or webcam cable. So we're going to have to get that out. It helps to use a screwdriver here to kind of just push these wings back. You want to be very careful with this. Okay, so just like that, you want to slowly walk it out, and there we go. Then we're going to peel up this cable. You want to try not to flex or crease it too much. You want to try and keep it flat. So I pull it that way while I kind of pull it up. All right, so just like this. Okay, and then hold that down so it doesn't fly out. And there we go. All right, so now we got the iSight camera and the the iSight camera webcam cable and the wireless antennas. Right, now we're going to disconnect the screen. Oops, too much stuff over here. Let me move that out of the way. All right, so the screen cable, you're going to flip up this latch. I get underneath with my fingernail. You can just pull up on this black plastic tab if you can get a hold of that. Once you do that, get a hold of the sides of the latch. All right, oops, hold that up. And then you can, towards the bottom of the latch, you can use that to pull it back, just like this. All right, and the cable comes out. All right, now we're going to remove the screen by opening up the laptop all the way and then place it with the screen or the keyboard. Excuse me, my throat is like all dry right now. But anyways, put the keyboard side down on the desk, all right, just like this. And then we're going to remove the 6 T8 or Torx 8 screws here. All right, so let's go ahead and remove those 6 screws. Okay, 1, 2, 3. We're going to see if this fixes the issue. Sometimes the weird keyboard issue can be caused by a bad trackpad or the trackpad cable or possibly the battery. So by replacing the entire assembly, we'll be testing all of that. Okay. If it solves the issue, you can like replace one at a time. It would actually be easiest to just change this cable first, but I don't have a spare of that cable that I can pull off. The one that I bought came with all the pieces. Alright, so now that we got all those screws out, we can go ahead and let the screen drop a little bit to about 90 degrees, and then we can lift it out just like that. Alright, so there we go. We got the screen out. We'll set that aside. Okay, let's zoom back in a bit. And let's go ahead and continue removing pieces of the computer. So, here you go. So you got the SSD here. I'm going to leave that in. It's just held in with a T5 or Torx 5 screwdriver. I'm going to switch back to that. Okay, let's go ahead and undo all the connections here. The wireless card, same thing. One screw, then it pops up and you can pull it out. But I'm going to leave it there for now. Okay. Again, we're just going to go ahead and disconnect all the cables right now. So let's go ahead and remove these metal plates here. Let me zoom in a bit here. Okay, as you can see, this does have an aftermarket battery. Okay. So we're going to remove these 2 screws. Alright, so we got those 2 screws out. We're going to do the same thing with this side. Okay, again, keep all the screws in order because they are different size, shape, and lengths. If you mix them up, you can damage your computer. Alright, so we got those out, and we'll take that metal plate out. Alright, let's go ahead and start disconnecting stuff. So we got this cable here. I'm going to get underneath on the opposite corners and then just pull it up. Same thing with the other side, opposite corners, and then kind of wiggle and pull it up, and then we'll set that aside. Alright, next thing we got the trackpad cable here. Let me zoom out a bit. Okay, so the trackpad, same thing with this connector. You just go from opposite corners, pull it up. There's an adhesive. Again, pull it that way to keep it flat, and then you can peel it up. Put your finger down here, hold it down so that when the adhesive releases, you don't accidentally just yank it really hard. Alright, and then we got this cable release here. You want to flip that latch up just like that. Once you flip that latch up, you can pull this back. There is an adhesive underneath that cable, so you are going to have to kind of pull somewhat hard. Just go slow and constant pressure, and it will peel out just like that. Right, we'll set that aside. Okay, let's go ahead now and remove the keyboard connector here. So same thing, flip that latch up. Once you flip the latch up, you can use this pull tab to pull the keyboard cable out. Right, we also have the board over here. So we got the connector for the speaker. The way you get that out, you get a thin flat tool, get underneath as close as you can to the connector as possible, and then you can go ahead and pop that up just like that. All right, you got the connector here that goes to this other board with the HDMI, USB, SD card slot, and the wireless adapter. We're going to disconnect that. So I just pinch the 2 sides here. You see this? All right. And then you can kind of just wiggle it out just like that. All right. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna disconnect the other speaker connector here. Same thing, get underneath. I use my fingernail, get as close as you can to that connector as possible, and then you can pop it up. All right, you also have the charge port connector here. You can grab that wire cable, kind of just wiggle it and keep wiggling, and eventually it will pop out. There's an adhesive here. We're gonna peel that up. Don't forget the keyboard backlight connector. I'm about to sneeze. Okay, keyboard backlight connector. So get your fingernails or whatever plastic pry tools under there, same thing, and just pop that up and move that out of the way. All right, so on this, you can actually leave the charge port board here. The replacement I got has this charge board, so I'm just gonna leave that there. And then let's go ahead now and remove all the screws we need to get this thing apart. So I think that's all the pieces I need to remove, so let's go ahead and start removing screws. So we're gonna remove this screw first. Okay, this is holding the heatsink down to this board. We're gonna leave the wireless card one. We're gonna take this screw out. Oh, I missed one. Okay, so we got that. Don't forget the screw here holding the fan. All right, we're not gonna take the fan completely off. We're just gonna take a few of the screws out so that it lifts. All right, we got the other screw here for the fan. We're gonna remove that one as well. All right, just like that. Gonna move over. Again, we're gonna leave this screw here. Let's go ahead and remove the screw up here. Okay, then we're gonna remove the screw down here. All right, again, try and keep all the screws in order. We're gonna move over. We're gonna get this screw up here out as well. Okay, another screw down here. Okay, then we got one more screw up here. Oh, I forgot one of the connectors here. So underneath this speaker, there's actually a the microphone connection here. So we're gonna peel this back slightly, flip that latch up. All right, and then same thing like the keyboard connector. I'm gonna use this plastic tab to help pull that cable out, just like that. You might have to wiggle it a little. There we go. All right, and then just to make it a little bit easier, we're gonna also disconnect or remove the screw for the battery connector here, just so that way we can lift it out easier. Let me see if the replacement has speakers. Okay, so the replacement doesn't have speakers, so we're also gonna take these speakers out. So the speakers have 3 screws each, so we're gonna take the 3 screws out of here. Okay. And keep all the screws in order. The speaker screws are like very different than all the rest, so keep that in mind. Most of the motherboard screws are about the same, but there are a few slight different ones, so keep that in mind. All right, once we got all the screws out and the speaker disconnected, we can rotate it like this, and then we can kind of just wiggle it and lift it out, just like that. Okay, we're gonna set that aside. We're gonna do the same thing with the other speaker. All right, so here, same thing, 3 screws. This one, the cable is a bit longer, going all the way over to the other side. Okay, just like this. All right, there we go. Now we're gonna go ahead and same thing, lift this up slightly at an angle, wiggle it. This one has some adhesive here for this cable, so be careful pulling this out. And there we go. All right, so we'll set this aside. Okay, now let's go ahead and start removing the motherboard and other components. So, all right, so the motherboard, now we can actually lift it up. So I'm gonna lift from here just because this is a little bit flexible, and if you bend this, you can damage it. So I'm lifting from down here. Okay, feels like it's caught on something, but all right, slowly lift this carefully. Try and grab from these 2 sides, and then you're gonna slowly keep angling it up, making sure all these cables are out of the way. Once you got it up about 45 degrees or so, you can go ahead and pull it over this way. And there we go, we got the entire motherboard or logic board out. Okay, I don't see anything weird here. So hopefully it really is something caused by the keyboard or the trackpad. All right, we're gonna set the motherboard aside. Okay. All right, and then all we got left is this board, I believe. There is another T8 or Torx 8 screw there, so you do want to remove that. Okay. Remove that screw as well, and then we can go ahead and lift this board out. You want to wiggle it carefully, and there we go. There's some dust here, so I am going to clean this up. All right. Brush this off to the side. Okay. All right, so it looks good now. All right, a lot less dust. Set that aside. Okay, so here you go. The only things left on here, battery, trackpads underneath. If you need to replace the trackpad, you will have to pry out the battery. So it's kind of a pain to do that. And a lot of times, if you're not careful, you can damage the battery. So most of the time, people end up replacing this whole Palmrest. Anyways, you got the charge port here. There's only 2 T5 screws holding it in place, so if you wanted to save that, you can. You got the microphone here. It's underneath these pieces. I don't know how you would pull that out. I think you have to like pry all these rubber pieces out. I've never had to replace a microphone, so I don't do that. And then you got the keyboard backlight connector here, which is this, it goes through this whole black plastic piece. So if you want to remove that, you'd have to peel that up. All right, so anyways, let's go ahead and get the replacement. So here we go, replacements like this. All right, and this is a used pulled part, of course, because Apple doesn't sell these. All right, so we got that. We're gonna first put back this piece, of course. All right, we're gonna put it at an angle like this. All right, get that in. Make sure all the ports and everything line up on the side here, okay? And then you kind of want to hold that in place. I like to make sure it's aligned by looking at the little screw mounts and making sure that they are lined up. Okay, it's a little bit hard to do it with the camera view angle, so there we go. Had to lift it up a little. All right, let's go ahead and put this one screw back first, so we can get that one in. Tighten that down. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get the motherboard back in. You might have to peel this up because if yours came with that cable, you're gonna have to make sure all these cables end up out of the way. That's the somewhat tricky part. All right, I'm gonna switch back over to the T5. They left this screw here for the battery, so I'm gonna take that one out. All right, I guess I can put that screw back for the other one later, but yep. All right, make sure all the cables are out of the way. We'll now grab the motherboard. Okay. All right, and then we're gonna put it back in at the angle like before. So carefully make sure all these cables end up back on top. All right, the microphone cable, charge port cable. These have little spring-loaded metal pieces. Make sure those go underneath this part of the casing. All right, the backlight connector is somewhat trapped, so I need to make sure to get that out of the way. All right, so let's go ahead and slide this back in. Okay, there's also a metal tab on this side. And then you want to make sure the headphone jack lines up. All right, get the battery connector out of the way. That one's a little bit tough. There we go. All right, we're gonna slowly lower this down, again, making sure that all the connectors are on top. So the trackpad connector, this connector, the keyboard connector. You might have to use a thin plastic tool to get that out. Let me see here. So I'm gonna use this, and I'm gonna use that to help pull the keyboard connector up and out of the way as I drop it into place. Okay, there we go. Slowly drop that, there we go. Looks like everything is good. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do, we gotta make sure all of these ports are lined up properly. Make sure the headphone jack is lined up right. This one, it kind of shifted a little, so I have to move it. Okay, and I like to use these little metal caps to make sure to pull the motherboard over and have it completely lined up. I'm gonna go ahead and put back the screw for the battery. Okay. All right, let me actually get the screw for the other battery, the old battery thing, and put that back so I don't forget. I don't want to get confused and put the wrong one. All right, so we'll set that out of the way. Okay, so we got that in. Let's go ahead and actually put the screws first before we start reconnecting everything, just to make sure everything stays aligned. So we're going to get the T5 screwdriver and just get all those screws back in. Okay, let me actually zoom in a bit here so it's easier for you guys to see. Right, we're going to work our way over from the right to the left. Go ahead and get all these screws in. And of course you want to make sure the headphone jack is lined up. Looks good. All right. Get that screw in. Let's go ahead and get the other screw over here in. Okay, we'll get the bottom fan screw in. Okay. All right, then we'll get these other 3 screws over here. This one right between the 2 screws for that bracket. All right, then we're going to work on these 2 up here. Screw in. All right, and the last corner screw up here for this fan. There we go. All right, now let's go ahead and start plugging everything in. So let's go ahead and plug this in first. Technically the order doesn't really matter as long as you can get everything in. It helps to kind of pinch the 2 pieces together. Other than the battery, you can plug everything in whenever, it doesn't matter. All right, trackpad cable connector here. Actually, this looks like it might be a little, okay, make sure that's clean. Okay, get that connector in. Good, all right. Okay, then we got that cable here that runs across. We'll plug that and then we'll put back the screws with the covers. All right, push that one in and push that one in. If you're wondering which side goes where, so I don't know if you can see. So this side has the crease in it, but you can also tell because you don't want it to overlap the fan if you put it backwards. And also these are like opposites, so you have this one going with the opposite one and then this one going with the opposite one. So this one has like the golden walls and then this one's just a connector, and that's how you know. All right, so just line them up, press it down, line it up, press it down. There we go. Let's go ahead and get these little covers back on. All right, get that in, tighten that in place, tighten that in place. All right, other metal bracket, same thing, put that on top. That screw in place, the other one, and get this screw in place. There we go. All right, don't forget the keyboard connector. This one is probably the most difficult to get back in just because it's so short. So let me zoom in here to show you. I use my fingernails to pull the connector back just so it slightly passes the connector on the motherboard. Just like that. And then once you get the entire thing like that, you can kind of push it down, and here you can see it kind of goes in on its own. Then you can go ahead and slide your finger over the latch to push it back down. For a lot of people, that one will be difficult, especially if you don't have fingernails to do that. All right, let's go ahead now and do the microphone connector here. So this one's a little bit tricky as well. Same thing, you want to pull it back, get it just behind that connector. Okay, let me see if I can show you with this. Okay, we'll hold it down, we'll slide that back, and then guide that into place and pull that in. Then you can use this plastic tab to help pull that into place. And there you go. You can see the white line from that connector is hidden underneath there. All right, we'll plug in the charge port connector here. Just get that lined up. Okay, pinch the two together just like that. You can push down the adhesive again. All right, don't forget the keyboard backlight connector here. You might have to push it back a little when you go to plug it in. It's a little difficult to make sure it lines up right. I have to look from the side to make sure I got it in. There we go. Okay, make sure it's pressed in all the way. All right, what do we got left? We got the speakers. Let's go ahead and zoom out here and put in the speakers. Right, so we put them in at an angle like this to get the cable underneath. Sorry, it's wobbling. And then roll that over. Okay, make sure that's in on both sides. Then get that straight on top and press it down. There we go. Right, we'll get those 3 screws back in. Okay, just like that. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna go over to the other side. Same thing, get that speaker in as well. Go in slightly at an angle like that. And rock it down. All right, let's go ahead and get these 3 screws back in first. You wanna make sure it's lined up. Okay. Go, and last screw. Oh, I should not have put this cable back first. All right, so I'm gonna have to lift this or take this part here, this metal cover out, the bracket. I forgot that I need to put the speaker cable underneath. All right, let's pop this back out. Sorry for the confusion. You don't have to take the cable completely out. You can actually get the speaker connector here. Just get it lined up, and just like the other one, just push it down. All right, make sure it's pushed in properly. There we go. And you can go ahead and put this cable back in. There we go. Get this latch or the bracket back on top. And we'll get these 2 screws in. Okay. Good. All right, now we got to get the screen back in. So we're gonna flip this back over and hang it over the edge of our desk. Okay, just like this. All right, and then we'll take the screen. Make sure to hold the cables up and out of the way, and then slowly drop that into place so that the hinges line up. Right, you're gonna have to hold the hinges up. Switch back over to the T8 or Torx 8 screwdriver. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this screw here first, and then this screw over here as well. All right, so we're gonna just use those 2 for now. We're gonna slowly, carefully close the screen, okay? Okay. All right, then we're gonna lay that down. Let's zoom in. All right, the reason we did that is because we're gonna now loosen these 2 screws. And then what you wanna do is go around the edges and make sure the screen is perfectly lined up. You don't want it to be misaligned because it could get caught on the casing and then it can damage itself. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and now tighten those screws. Okay, just like this. All right, let's go ahead and reconnect these connectors real quick. So we got the LCD or LVDS connector. So you want to, again, use the latch to guide it. Grab that, get it all lined up. Okay, make sure everything is lined up right. And then you can pull that into place, flip the latch down. All right, click that down. All right, let's rotate this and let's go ahead now and get the webcam or eyesight cable in. So we'll get this over here, goes underneath the rubber piece. Line that up, and then you want to use, you can use a plastic tool or whatever, and we'll use the wings to kind of walk it slowly, just going left, right, left, right. I'm going to use this side because it's stronger, and there we go. Okay, now we're going to get the wireless antennas. If you want, you can go ahead and stick down all of this. All right, I'm gonna now get the wireless antennas here. Let's actually put back the screws for this to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so we're gonna put back the rest of the hinge screws. Okay, so let's get this screw in. All right, make sure it's nice and tight. If you want, you can add some thread locker to make sure they don't come loose. All right, usually these screws don't have an issue, but I might add some actually. Let me go ahead and add some of the thread locker just to make sure they don't come loose. Actually, I'm going to test it first because just in case it doesn't work, I don't want to put all that thread locker and then it doesn't work. So let's go ahead and get this lined up. I'm going to put this screw loosely first just so it stays in place. We'll get the second screw and tighten that down. Okay. Tighten these screws into place. There we go. All right, make sure they're nice and tight. I'm gonna switch over now to the T5 or Torx 5 screwdriver, and we're gonna put back in those little metal bracket things. Okay, so it goes in like that. Make sure you don't switch them around. They only can go one way. All right, just like that. Go over to this side, same thing. We'll get that screw in. There we go. Let's go ahead and put these little rubber covers back on. Just like that. Same thing with the other one. All right, wireless antennas. So wireless antennas, you just got to make sure they're lined up completely. All right, just like every other video. If you have it lined up, you'll know, because when you try and move it around, it kind of stays in place. Then you can go ahead and push it down. Right? Want to make sure it's lined up. If you try and push it down and it's not lined up, then you can actually damage the connector or the wireless card or both. So you want to be very sure. Try and move it around. It should stay in place, and then you can go ahead and push down the connector. There we go. All right, they're all connected. They're all lined up. There we go. And I think we got everything connected. So let's go ahead now and plug back in the battery. And then we're going to put the bottom cover back on and hope that everything is good. All right, let's zoom out here. Oops, somebody just called me. All right, let's flip this over. And now let's test the keyboard. So right now what we're going to do a PRAM and SMC reset. So let's get the charger. Let me make sure I get the right charger. I have too many cables up here. Okay, so we got this. All right, so we're going to plug this in. If it's not 100%, the battery should, or the charge light should go to orange. That's how you know that it's charging properly. Then to do an SMC reset, we're going to do Control Option Shift on the left side, power button, should go to green and then back to orange. That's how you know you did the SMC reset right. Now we're going to do a PRAM reset, powered on, Command Option P and R, hold those buttons down. All right, the screen should come on and then it should shut itself back off. That's how you know you did the PRAM reset right. I just saw it go off, so I know it's already done, but I'm going to hold it a little bit longer just to be safe. You'll hear the chime. If your volume was on, you'll see the screen go off. And then if you hear the chime a second time, you know you did the PRAM reset right. So originally the sound was turned off, and that's why it didn't do it. So there you go. It made the second chime. Okay. Once I confirm all of this is working okay, then I'm going to add the thread locker. Oh, yeah, it's working fine now. Okay, so that fixed it. I don't know if it was the trackpad or the battery, so their keyboard was likely okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and shut this down now, and we're gonna add some thread locker to the hinge screws. All right, I'm gonna let it charge up because the battery is low on here. Okay, so I'm gonna now add the thread locker here. The red thread locker. Okay, let's take these rubber covers off. Alright, and let's go ahead and now take the screw out, and we're just going to add a little thread locker. And then after we're done putting all of this back, we're going to go ahead and reassemble it, and we're good to go. Again, hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, make sure to like, subscribe, and share my channel with others. If it helped you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. Alright, that's pretty much all there is to this video. You can stay while I watch as I put the rest of the screws back, but that's pretty much it. So let me just get the thread locker on all of these. Okay, and the reason I put this again is because a lot of times the hinge screws come loose. That's partially why Apple put these rubber things here to kind of stop that. It's a known issue with all the different laptop models, not just Apple. So keep that in mind. I always add thread locker to the hinge screws when I can. Okay. They'll usually put the blue thread locker from factory, but a lot of times I see that comes loose, and then people's hinges break. On the Macs, it's not as big of a deal because they put it into a solid block of aluminum. But if they do come loose and you break the hinge, then it's a huge pain, and a lot of times you can actually end up with a kind of, your entire screen is no longer useful, and these screens now are super expensive, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Alright, there we go. Let's go ahead and close this up. We should be good to go. Put this rubber piece back on. Alright, go ahead and put this metal cover back on. Click that all into place. Let's go ahead and switch back to the T5 or Torx, or not T5, to the P5 or Pentalobe 1.2 screwdriver. Alright, and we should be good to go. So let's get that in. Get this one in. Oh, why is this screw so difficult to twist? There we go. Okay. Yep, that's pretty much it. Let's get all these screws. Last few screws. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Let's drop this spike.